Welcome to BCB Live. Yes, we are that safest station in the nation. Good morning. Welcome to BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. You have your host, and we had a discussion before the show about this. You have your host, Sir Rick here, and you're like my assistant manager,
okay, first of
my
all,
co-host.
Okay, co-host means there's two, so that would make you a co-host as well. So I try to explain.
Never looked at it that way. Never
explain exactly how that works.
I always thought the host was like more important than the co-host. Like the show can go on without the co-host, but the host.
Can it?
Really? Oh, you're absolutely right. Hey, drive safe, Dave. We can go here and banter back and forth, but we have more important things to do today.
Today we're going to have fun.
We're getting somebody out of bed early.
Yep.
We're making things happen. We're going to talk a little bit of freight tech.
I'm excited.
And Dave, no better person than to talk to with Grace on that. With Drive Safe, we have another co-host. There's hosts all over the place.
And she's sporting her safety vest. Look at that, Grace. Got your safety vest out. Well, I like it. Trying to be on the safest station in the nation. She's representing.
She is representing. Grace, how you doing today?
Doing good. I always need a little bit of some of Rick's fuel in the morning to get myself going. So I'm awake now, unfortunately.
Oh, good. You know what? We appreciate you taking the time. I know we only have about 10 or 11 minutes on this, so we're just going to jump into it. Grace, you spend a lot of time in she has more channels, more stations, she's on more shows than anybody in America. Superstar. That is absolutely right. We have the super host, the host, and the co-host. But Grace, when we're talking to you a little bit about that, a lot of conversation goes on around that world of freight tech. First of all, when we say freight tech, what is that? What are we talking about?
We're talking about the technology that we use within all of our supply chains today. Whatever is helping to get freight from, honestly, even up to point of sale, right? What are we using to actually get a sale from our customer? How are we tracking that results? How are we procuring the products? How are we working with suppliers? How are we finding the trucks? How are we tracking them? What are we learning from them? And how are we using technology to improve all of our businesses within the supply chain? So it's pretty deep, and like logistics, plenty of areas to talk about when you want to implement technology.
You know, I don't think, Grayson, as you talk about it, there isn't an area over the last few years that hasn't been genuinely impacted with freight tech, right? I mean, and not only, and I'm talking about just prior to COVID, but through COVID and into today, we see it even ever more expanding in the area of freight, correct?
Even more so, yeah, especially when we see different market swings, right? There's different areas that people are going to be more attracted to, whether it's growing your business, but also managing your cash flow. There's going to be different opportunities for different types of tech to excel, and there's definitely some hotter areas today than we've seen in the past.
Yeah, and Grace, when we talk about that, and Dave, we know the reasons why we should go out and get some of this technology. There's so much of it. It's there to help us get better at what we do, but there's challenges with it too. And Grace, I want to talk a minute just about that. I mean, what really keeps, what's the pushback, I guess, from trucking companies, from maybe TMS providers, from people in bringing on some of this freight tech? What do you see on that? Because I'm going to say this. The challenge from ownership or from people is that you don't just plug it in and all of a sudden it works.
It's not plug and play.
It's not plug and play. Yeah. So let's dive into a little bit on that.
Yeah, it's not plug and play. And I think if we look back before we hit this freight wall, you could say, a lot of the technology providers in this space for at least a year or two during COVID were given a lot of money to scale their businesses, which means onboard as many customers as possible, add as many employees as possible, and really showcase to our investors that we're growing our business. Well, then we hit this freight wall, and investors, of course, want to see that return. And that means profitability, which means you really have to be focused on how those customers are valuing your software. There's no turnaround in customers. You're seeing them stick month to month. And I think the biggest thing that we're seeing is those who are doing well today have really focused on that onboarding and how they're helping their actual customers change their processes inside their four walls in order to make the technology work. I think you can build all the technology that you want, but when you're talking about an industry that's going through transformation, it takes those who are going to step up and say, hey, let's work together on making the solution work. And that might mean a little bit uncomfortableness between the two of us and how we're building this. But I think it's taking deeper conversations to actually showcase some true value.
Grace, and as you talk about it and as you bring it up, the technology is there and does a great job. But really, I think the drawback right away is the human nature. We all resist change, right? I mean, each and every one of us, no matter what we do and how we do our lives, we're just resistant to a change. Even if it's positive, you kind of got to pull it out of its shell. And I think really, in order for these trucking companies and these shippers and receivers to understand this well, they got to accept change and know that it's going to be a painful process, right?
Change management, Grace. We talked about it before the show. What does that mean how does that apply to what Dave's talking about?
I mean, that means both parties learning each other's why and why processes are the way that they are, and how to make those employees feel involved in the conversations. Listen, I'm an ops girl. I love new tech. If I could force every person to just embrace technology and trust it, I would, but that's just not human nature. We need to know, I think, that this technology is going to help us not only improve our jobs, make our jobs safer, hence I think what a lot of your work is, right?
For sure.
And also make me more money. What's going to help me grow my career, put myself in a better position for my family? You have to put it into those terms, or else especially entry-level employees just aren't going to get it.
Yeah, on that freight tech side, Grace, going down that same road right here, they also, and I'm curious what kind of pushback perhaps or changing in the way they're doing business today, because if a trucking company, Dave, if somebody in our industry didn't really get involved with this last year, in today's market, it's hard to just go ahead and open your checkbook up. So to me, those people on that freight tech side, those software folks, the people with all this AI, they've got to approach the trucking companies a little bit different. And that's that opening up that relationship. And perhaps they may have to go at it with a different price point than they were doing it back last year, because the market's changed and it's scary to just dive in and trust, Grace.
1,000%. That's why you'll see in the writing that I do and the announcements you hear, a lot of times when these companies are new, they're not sharing their revenue numbers. They're not sharing a lot of those details because, they do have to make different fluctuations based on the customer that they're onboarding and how great the opportunity could be, right? Someone like yourself who's looking to use technology to scale. Well, let's think about what this long-term relationship could actually be like. And so I think there's definitely tech players in the space today. I will say, though, I think the trucking companies themselves really have to start considering about the future, too. I know that you're on top of this, Rick, but there's a lot out there that have to consider the different fuel types we're going to be running into regulatory-wise, different automation within vehicles as well. And you might want to be a late adopter to that, but you're going to have to invest in a whole different type of employee probably within your four walls. So there's going to be, I think, in the near future, a little bit more pull from the carrier side to adopt a lot of these new areas.
And I'll tell you, really, to me, one of the biggest questions, and when you talk about ownership and you talk about shippers and receivers, they want to know what the return on investment is going to be right away before they ever dive in. And I think it's really difficult to say right off the bat.
Yeah, it's impossible, right?
Well, this is going to be the dollar amount you're going to have because you've invested. It's not there, but if you don't start now, Grace, really, that's the lesson we're learning. If you don't start sooner, it's going to be even more painful down the road. Do you agree? I mean, if you don't get in it somehow, if you wait till later, you're just going to get crushed.
Definitely agree with you. And I mean, especially in this type of economy, look back at those players that really said, you know what, I'm going to invest in our operations. I'm going to make us as clean and as able to grow as we can. So then when we get out of this type of market, we're able to just skyrocket out of here. I think you're going to see probably in the next year, whenever this market turns around, I would say more 2024. But when this does turn around, we'll definitely know who made those investments.
All right, you brought it up first, and so I'm going to go with 2024. You know, I wouldn't have thought, Grace, I'm going back into, say, the fourth quarter of last year and even the first quarter of this year, maybe the first couple of months, but I was hard-pressed to think that 23 and all of 24, maybe the first 6 months of 24, may remain kind of status quo. But it looks more and more and more like what we live today, Dave and Grace, is kind of what we should expect, maybe should budget, should plan on for probably the next 12 months. I know there's no crystal ball out there, but anything you see that says, Rick, you're way off, the market's getting ready to explode tomorrow.
If anything, the market's getting ready to probably fall apart a little bit more. You have student loans that are going to get turned on. You have students who, a big portion of our population who haven't had to pay $400, $500 a month for the past, 3 years now. So I don't know where people will see the spending coming from. But I myself am nothing any earlier than Q2 of 2024. I mean, Q1 always sucks, right? So there's no way it's bouncing back in the worst quarter we usually have in this industry. I would probably agree with you on this one. I wouldn't be seeing anything insane until at least Q2, Q3 of next year.
You know, Grace, I want to agree with you too, and only from the other's perspective is that the money supply has shrank greatly, and it just costs a whole lot more to borrow money right now to go out and invest. And so you're not got a lot of people running out to say, hey, give me that 8% interest rate. That looks real sexy when I try to plan it up. I agree with you. I think we're in kind of a check phase, right?
Yeah, we're in a
now.
check phase. 100% agree. I think we'll start to see a lot of year-over-year numbers remaining kind of the same. I do think once we get into January of 2024, you know, those numbers, those month-to-month numbers, you may actually see some improvement year-to-year next year. You know, I do believe that, about February, March, that some companies will see better numbers than they posted this February, especially, Grace, if they have hopped in and jumped in on a little bit of technology to help them with the decision process. Drive safe, Dave. I know we got to let Grace go here, but first of all, hey, kudos to you and me for being way ahead of the game and not going to college. You know, we were way ahead, man.
No student loan out there for me right now. So.
Yeah, I paid mine off, thank God. So that's done. But I agree with you on that one. Think twice, kids, for sure.
Absolutely. Hey, Grace, before you get out of here and before we leave, we always ask our guests to say a little tagline before they go. And I would like you to introduce yourself, say who you are, and that you're watching BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. Can you do that for us?
This is my favorite part. Of course I can, yes. My name is Grace Sharkey. I am a FreightWaves staff writer and also SiriusXM radio host, and you've been watching BCB Live, the safest station in the nation.
Love you, Grace. Thank you for everything you do for our industry. Keep it going. Anything we can do to help you out, really the host can do to help you out, let me know on that. If I can't do it, I'll send it over to the co-host.
And then I'll actually get it done.
Yes. I love it, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Grace. Be good.